Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. How you all doing, gang? Over here in the UK, we have those cold, dark, wet nights to look forward to now. You know, we're approaching that time of the year where many of you listening will get up and it's dark. And as you sat there on the way to the office, probably listening to me, you'll return home 8 hours from now, only to find that it's still dark. Getting up when it's dark, going home when it's dark can be quite depressing. But I do hope you've stocked up on your vitamin D to help you get through the winter months. But I must admit, I do quite like this time of the year and look forward to putting on my loungewear, turning the heating up and playing a little FIFA or just watching a little Netflix, because you can't beat cosy nights, can you? But I digress. In over 650 episodes, I like to think that I've captured information on every industry and shared stories of how technology is transforming them. But I don't think that we've covered the world of sales performance management, or SPM to the cool kids in that industry. So when I discovered a company called Optymyze, which is a sales performance management platform which combines data science, process automation, enterprise planning and advanced analytics, combined with the fact, of course, that Gartner recently listed them as the leader in sales performance management, I had to get them on the show to find out more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the east coast of the US, just outside Philadelphia, I believe, where John from Optymyze is waiting to speak to us about the digital transformational challenges that he sees working firsthand with large enterprise clients, but also how sales orgs can overcome them. So a massive warm welcome to the show, John. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure, certainly. So my name is John Ristuccia. I work for Optymyze as the SVP of Operational Planning. I've been in the sales performance management and sales operations space for about 20 years, and I've been with Optymyze since it's formed a few years ago. I've spent most of my time in that period in the professional services side of our business, doing things like consulting with our customers about their different SPM problems, sales performance management. I'll use that acronym a lot. Consulting with them about their problems, doing business process design, system design earlier in my career, helping them implement the solutions that they need, and then helping them manage the ongoing operations for customers that need that. And then as I've progressed through my career, I've spent much more and more time on the overall engagement management, managing our internal operations, managing our engagements with clients. I've also spent time in the sales and marketing organization within Optymyze and in my career. So I know how it feels to be on the other side of sales performance management, not just providing solutions, but getting the outputs of what sales operations does. Right now, I'm responsible for operational planning, which really means that I'm in contact on a daily basis with both our professional services teams that are responsible for delivery, as well as the clients as an escalation point, helping them handle day-to-day issues as an escalation, and helping them think ahead beyond just what they're doing today, what their short-term priorities are, which is a key part of our engagement model, something that I'll probably talk about a lot as we continue the conversation.
And I've got a feeling we are going to hear the acronym SPM quite a lot during our conversation.
Most likely, yes.
Now, when I was doing a bit of research on you, I quickly found that you combine data science, process automation, enterprise planning, and advanced analytics. And essentially, you seem to be leveraging technology to enable your clients to execute new sales strategies and effectively drive sales performance and sales force productivity. But for anyone listening to the show that's hearing about Optymyze for that very first time, can you just offer an overview of what you do and what makes you unique from other SPMs out there?
Sure, certainly. So Optymyze is really, I think if I were to summarize it in one sentence, which I'll obviously elaborate on, I would say that really what makes us unique is that our solution is an integrated solution. The technology includes, as you already pointed out, multiple integrated platforms, all in the same software. And in addition to that, it also has services integrated as well. So it's an overall engagement model, not just software. It's the technology and the engagement model together that's all integrated. So from the technology side, and you already kind of mentioned this, is that Optymyze is comprised of 5 overall platforms. They're all no-code platforms. So everything that I'm talking about in these platforms can be done without someone going in and writing SQL code or scripting or anything. It's all configuration, which is a unique item as well in our space. The first thing, the thing that we started with really were the sales performance management platform itself. And that includes SPM apps for managing incentive and sales compensation, for managing quotas for salespeople, for managing territory alignments and so forth for salespeople, how you define what everyone's area of responsibility is, what customers they call on, and then managing objectives as well. And that's the first platform, but it can and often is extended by using the other four platforms. There's the data management platform, which is a extract, transform, load, an ETL tool that allows us to really scale and manage a very complex data repository, which is frequently necessary for our customers to execute SPM processes well. There's the app development platform, which allows us to automate business processes that we often find are manual, that are common in sales ops, which helps us to improve the time to value for customers. It also helps us to really build more targeted apps and make the customer's processes more efficient, both within sales operations and also among salespeople themselves. Downstream of that are the reporting and analytics platform, which is what allows us to build off of the standard reports that we typically would generate and create more rich visualizations, more rich dashboards, things that help the salespeople make the right decisions, know how they're doing, know how they can do better, help executives decide how the incentive plans are doing, how the sales force is doing, make better decisions going forward, and obviously help the in-house teams run the business better, support the sales teams better, support the executives better, and provide answers to questions much more quickly. And then lastly is the enterprise planning platform, which is what allows it's kind of like Excel, but in an online way. Our CEO describes it as Excel on steroids. It allows you to build these kinds of models that you would do in Excel, but do it in the software and interact and collaborate in a real-time way, which is useful in SPM for doing things like plan designs, quota modeling, those kinds of things. It just makes it a lot faster than emailing spreadsheets back and forth. So that's the technology side of it. On the services side, the engagement model, that's another thing that I think makes us unique. We're not a company that's looking for a transactional relationship where we just implement software and then move on, which is common in the technology industry. Our goal is really to find ways to bring more transformational change to customers by leveraging the platforms that I described, but also the expertise of our people in our professional services organization. And to do that, we really have to look much more broadly than just a 3 to 4 month implementation. So we have an engagement model that really runs along 3 parallel paths that happen together at the same time. Obviously, the first is delivery. Delivering the services, planning for that delivery, focusing on the next few months. What is the customer's key short-term goals? What do they need to get set up? What are the most critical problems they have to solve? Then is the operational planning focus, which is a bit longer term, looking out 6, 12, 18 months in the future. What's next after these key short-term problems? Do we need to help them redesign business processes? Are there larger initiatives within sales operations, SPM, that we can help them with? Looking for ways to continuously improve things for them, make their sales force more effective, make their operations more efficient after we solve those initial kind of, houses on fire sort of problems that they have that kick off an engagement. And then lastly is what we call the strategic planning part of the engagement, which is focused very long term, 3 to 5 years out, looking at their corporate initiatives, their corporate goals, not immediate problems. It's not about how to solve them, but looking at what's out there, what they're trying to accomplish, and how we can help them and translate that into operational and delivery initiatives in the medium and short term. And that is often focused far beyond incentive comp and a lot of times focused far beyond SPM. That's where that type of engagement model is what we have found helps us deliver the best outcomes for customers. And of course, different customers need different levels of that. There are some customers whose internal house is very well in order, and they really only need help with the initial setup, and then some low level of ongoing support and ongoing engagement that I just described. And it doesn't need to be a lot. They're in good shape. There are others that they really rely on us as a long-term operational partner, where we're not just an advisor, but we're helping them on a day-to-day basis with sales operations, helping them execute the processes, helping them with change management, helping them set up a center of excellence in their organization for sales operations, and then helping them execute that going forward.
Now, many enterprises are facing the digital transformation challenges at the moment and facing up to the fact that it is actually much, much more than just another buzzword. So as someone that is working firsthand with large enterprise clients, I'm curious, what kind of problems are your clients experiencing right now and how are you helping them?
So I would say within SPM and sales ops in general, companies face the same kinds of issues that they face with digital transformation and automation that they face in most areas. There's a strategic misalignment between what sales is doing and the company and sales strategy, so that reps aren't necessarily following the strategy because they don't really understand it. There are a lot of manual processes that are inefficient and inconsistent, so they're very labor intensive, both for the sales operations team internally and for salespeople that end up spending too much time doing this and not selling. There are problems with inaccurate results, whether you're paying people incorrectly and then having to go back and fix it, whether the data that you're reporting out to people, their sales data, their performance data is wrong, or their quotas aren't correct and they're not motivating people. That's obviously a problem. There's in general a lack of timely and of actionable information to salespeople, to the internal administrative people, to the executives at all levels. It's a very common problem. And all of that together also, again, leads to the inability for the sales organization and sales operations to adapt as the business changes. It's one of those areas in a company that is constantly changing. I mean, this happens all over the place, but especially in sales and sales ops, you have to constantly change your strategy, change your plans, change your approach as your market changes. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. So I would say those are the main problem areas. What is interesting to me, and I found this with most engagements over the years, it's not the actual incentive compensation calculations that are the most difficult part. Customers think that it is, but that's rarely true. And at Optymyze, what we try to do is really drill in and understand the root causes of all of those problems that I just mentioned, which isn't easy because the challenges, in my experience at least, typically lie upstream and downstream from the incentive calculations themselves. On an upstream basis, it's the data, like it is with most parts of an organization. There's a lot of work and complexity in getting the data correct before you can actually calculate the performance of salespeople, pay them out, explain to them how they're doing and how they can do better. It's a huge issue in the large, complex organizations that we work with. It's not unusual for these companies to have over 100 data sources from all over the organization, from an HR system, third-party data in some industries, lots of manual sources, an ERP, their CRM, all over the place. So that's not unusual at all. And have to pull in hundreds of millions of records from these kinds of sources to pay a sales force of thousands of people. And the way that we really help them at a high level is we try to understand that environment, look for ways to streamline the process using the data management platform that I mentioned. How can we help them automate the manual steps? Because there are almost always lots of manual steps to get data correct, and eliminate those risky processes, eliminate the exceptions, provide them the ability to audit things so that when adjustments inevitably do happen, they can look back, understand why, be able to track it, be able to prove that they're compliant. On the downstream side of things, reporting is another area where there's a lot of complexity and lead to a lot of problems. Whether that's reporting the results of performance and payments to salespeople, reporting trends to sales leaders, and so that they can react and make the decisions they need to make, reporting out to executives, reporting even internally for operations to understand how things are going. The data can be incorrect. Often the results are delivered late, so by the time people get the information, it's kind of stale. The information is not actionable. So you can have instances where someone might have 200 reports to look at, but they don't need that, and they end up looking at none of them because they can't figure out what they're supposed to do with them. So in those situations, we really have to take a step back, help understand really what these different roles in the organization need, and then provide them with a more distilled, accurate view that's as timely as possible, so that they aren't spending time drilling in constantly, investigating, filtering, figuring out what all this information is that they have and what of it is actually useful. And the way that we do that is to treat reporting like a story. Start with, what are the key business questions? There shouldn't be hundreds of these for an individual persona. What are the key business questions? Create a simple visualization that starts from there. It starts with the answer to that question. Obviously, when you get that answer, you may want to drill in and understand the details and what's leading to that answer. And we can build it that way. We can configure that. But start with those key answers so that people don't spend hours and hours sifting through data, and we're not just throwing charts and graphs at people. That's really, I think, the main approach that we can bring to the table to customers to help them really distill and solve these major problems that they have.
So on this Daily Tech podcast, we also talk about how technology can transform businesses, but also how traditional software can create a whole heap of problems too. So whether it's inaccurate CRM data, manual processes, or unclear compensation policies, they all can create problems that do little to motivate sales reps in your industry. So where do you begin to solve problems like that?
Yes, I would say that overcoming the organizational inertia is often a big challenge there. Companies typically start with us with a very admin-focused view of how Optymyze can help them. They want to speed up their payment cycle. They want to reduce errors. They want to eliminate manual processes, which, of course, are important things that need to be addressed, and we can and do accomplish them. So that's generally the first stage. But we also try to push clients to think beyond their administrative problems to who their true customers are. And for sales ops, the true customers for them are the salespeople themselves. And that's in the long term where the biggest value add that Optymyze can provide. And any benefit you give a sales force is multiplied by hundreds or thousands. If you think about it, if it's a sales force that's selling $2 billion of product, if you improve the performance of that sales force by even 1%, you're making millions of extra dollars for the company. So that's ultimately, in the long run, where we can add the most value. But it's difficult to get a client focused on those kinds of transformational outcomes when they have those burning operational problems to begin with. If you're struggling to pay people accurately and on time, it's an all-consuming problem. You don't have time to think long term. So I look at it really as like a hierarchy of the problems that we need to solve for customers. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is address those basic needs, put out those fires. Help them pay people timely and accurately. Help ensure that the salespeople actually understand their results and understand the plan, so the plan itself is effective. Eliminate any compliance risks that they're facing. If they can't prove why they're paying people, can't track adjustments and changes they're making, eliminate those so that they don't have to worry about that. Help the sales operations team be responsive to their customers, the salespeople. Once we can do that and accomplish that, they feel more safe in those kind of basic needs that they have. We can then start to think about the more strategically valuable goals that are higher on that scale. So helping them improve sales enablement and sales effectiveness, making the salespeople more effective, understanding better what they need to focus on and where they need to perform better. Looking into broader areas of sales operations beyond just the comp and the administration, like talent and onboarding and CRM and those kinds of areas, and leveraging the accurate data, the timely data, the integrated data that we need for sales compensation to support those areas, looking at performance analytics, forecasting, talent profiling, that sort of thing. And in general, trying to make SPM a more strategic tool. So helping them measure the alignment of their quotas and their incentive plans to the corporate strategy and making sure that it's aligned. Helping the salespeople balance their workload and their opportunity so that they're calling on the right customers and that they're maximizing the time that they spend with customers. Helping to set motivational goals for the salespeople that are driving growth for the company, but aren't so high that the salespeople look at the goal and just give up because they know they can never make it. Setting up a center of excellence, like I mentioned before, where, from an internal operational perspective, how can we help harmonize processes across large organizations? A lot of the organizations we work with are global, so they have salespeople all over the world in different sales forces. How can we help them harmonize that, make it more efficient, make it more effective? When we can solve those problems, that's when we can really look on a very longer term transformational basis, kind of tied to that strategic engagement side of the engagement model that I brought up before. And for Optymyze and for us, really, that's looking long term at some things that are just sort of buzzwords, but how can we put those buzzwords in action? Things like cognitive automation, collaborative planning. How can we leverage big data? How can we help them develop performance profiles of their best reps and share those best practices across the sales force? How can we help sales management be more effective in a more automated way so it's less expensive, it's more efficient? That's really kind of the hierarchy of how we help solve problems for clients. I would say, it's very much tied to the engagement model and why we move to that model.
So do you have any use cases that you can provide that will actually provide that before and after picture to showcase just how the sales transformation and the technology market is a real game changer for enterprises?
Sure. Yeah, I would say I can think of a couple of examples. One is a mid-sized pharma company that we work with, where that's an example where we sort of became a big part of their sales ops department. They had been working with a vendor before us that was very admin focused. They did what they were told. When the customer asked them to do something, they did it. But they needed someone that was more of a partner, someone that was going to challenge them and would really recommend things to them, would challenge what we thought wasn't correct. And that's where Optymyze came in. We took over from that other vendor, and that was our attitude from the beginning. We came in, told them what we thought worked well, what didn't work well. Obviously, we leveraged our platform because they had a lot of manual processes that they needed to deal with. So we leveraged our platform to help them fix that. It obviously started with comp, because that's what most of our customers start with, is incentive comp and those kind of core processes. But we very quickly moved on, in addition to that, to helping them fix their process for setting quotas for their salespeople, not just designing a good process, but automating it. We provided cutting-edge modeling for them to make their incentive plans more effective so they could design them better and have them be more effective. We increased the frequency of the sales reporting that the reps got and that executives and managers got, so that they would see things on a weekly basis, rather than seeing it on a monthly or quarterly basis, where oftentimes it was too late to act. We improved the intelligence that the salespeople had about the managed care environment, which is very important in pharmaceuticals because that has a huge influence on the prescribing patterns of doctors. The more you understand that, the better you can plan out your calls, plan out your strategy within your territory. So we improved the intelligence that the salespeople had for that. And that drove a much more efficient and better process for them and drove revenue for them. And we also got into more of the activity reporting for the salespeople so that they could actually see who they should be calling on, drive the right activity, identify the right opportunities, and reinforce the company's targeting strategy, which is an example of kind of how over time what we do evolves far beyond just the incentive comp administration, the quota administration, and the territory administration. Another example, kind of a different sort of approach and a different way that an engagement has gone. It's a very large consumer packaged goods company. And this actually started as a consulting engagement. It didn't start as technology, though, of course, it evolved that way. What they needed help with was changing their sales culture. It had become very stagnant. They paid commissions for decades. I think it was something like 40 years they'd been doing this. And it really wasn't driving revenue growth anymore. Salespeople knew they were going to get their commission. They did their work. They got their commission, and it really didn't motivate behaviors. And they wanted to move to a quota-based plan to motivate growth and motivate the salespeople to focus on growth. But they had a lot of organizational inertia to overcome to do that. So what we did is help them set quotas because they didn't really have experience with that, help them design the right methodology, help them define what incentive plans should be. Of course, automating that process as well, providing with the educational materials, the motivational materials to communicate this to their salespeople, because it was something the salespeople weren't used to at all. It was a major culture change. And we went through a multi-year rollout process with them because they had something like 40,000 salespeople. And evaluated this initiative as it was going, tweaked it with them as it went along, continued to provide more and more automation through our platform. And we really saw an immediate change to the salesperson behavior in the areas that this was rolled out. They were very aware of the rewards for beating their goals. It really provided a long-term focus on sales growth, which had been lacking before. And since then, we've expanded far beyond that with the customer. We've started working with them on multiple other apps that really aren't about sales compensation. They're about workforce management. So helping them do performance appraisals of their salespeople, helping them determine merit increases, helping them manage kind of the routes and the territories and the calling for their salespeople. So it's really expanded beyond that. And it's a much different path than the first customer that I described, but it still leads to a really transformational change for the organization.
And your success has been recognised by Gartner, and I think they named you as a leader in sales performance management. I mean, that's got to feel like a great nod from the industry that you're doing the right thing and make both you and your team incredibly proud of that recognition, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, it's a validation that our approach is effective, and our approach is very different compared to most of our competition. And it's a real challenge for a company like Optymyze to compete against huge competitors in our space like SAP and IBM and Oracle. They already have ins with most of the prospects that we're calling on. They already have ins with a lot of our customers in other areas of the organization. They follow a very traditional kind of IT-focused approach that is well accepted and understood by the buyers in the organizations that we work with. And our approach is much different than that. And it's always a challenge for us. And we need to be able to explain to customers how it's better for them. And having a high position at Gartner is a great way as a proof point for that. And I think really most important from my perspective is that Gartner's feedback, it matches the feedback we got from our customers. And for us, that's the most important thing, is what our customers think. So when our customers are giving this feedback and Gartner is, that's really a great validation for me, and it makes me feel good that what we're doing and how we're evolving things is working over time, because those are the main feedback loops that we take is from our customers and from analyst firms like Gartner to make sure that we're aligned to what the market really needs.
And I think it's also worth highlighting that you guys are not just focused on increasing revenue for your clients. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you're able to deliver, I think it's 75% reduction in errors, IT costs, field disputes, and dispute resolution time too?
Sure. Yeah, I think those are sort of those critical short-term kind of houses on fire problems that I was talking about earlier. It's what drives the business case for most of the buying decisions with customers that we work with. And I would say the things that really help us do that are those 5 platforms, being able to expand beyond just being a calculation engine for comp so that we're not constrained by that. And when we see that the causes of those issues, errors, high costs, a lot of disputes and questions from the field, when we see that those things are driven by more than just comp calculations, whether it's data or manual processes or poor reporting, we can expand beyond just doing the comp calculations, and we can leverage those platforms, and we can leverage the experience of our people to solve those problems, because technology alone is not the cure for most of these things. It's obviously a critical part, certainly, but the problems often go deeper than that. And we don't want to just automate a messy, exception-riddled process, because you'll gain some efficiencies when you do that, but you're not really going to transform anything. You need to correct the overall process, make it more efficient before you automate it. That's why the best practices that we bring to the table are so important, and why the experience that we have is so important.
So when it comes to digitizing almost every process, do you encounter any challenges with culture change and the whole, but we've always done it this way? And how are we helping companies overcome that? Because I think that's the biggest drawback a lot of the time, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about organizational inertia. Clients they're very resistant to change. It's difficult. It's scary. A lot of times the risks to these kinds of changes are easier to imagine than the benefits. So it's very much, that's probably the main thing that we have to overcome. Also helping them understand best how to leverage the technology that they buy. They look at it as an administrative tool, and we have to show them how, from a long-term basis, it can really help them in other ways that are more transformational. And really thinking about it from a three-pronged perspective. To achieve a transformational outcome, whether it's a digital or other outcome, you have to look at the technology, of course. You have to look at the process itself, and you have to look at the people that are involved, making sure that they're the right people, making sure that as you move sales operations from being an administrative burden to being a strategic advantage, that you have the right people that are focused on those longer-term strategic, high-value kind of tasks. In terms of how we do that, we need to take a step back at the start of an engagement. take a more expansive view of what the customer really needs, how their process is really working, what's driving the desire for some kind of a change, and make sure it's the right kind of a change. Understand the root causes. Challenge the status quo. We have to bring our best practices to the table. We need to challenge the clients on the right way to manage their business and to handle things, and ask why all the time to get to those root causes and engage in those difficult conversations. I tell clients that a lot at the beginning of an engagement, that we're going to challenge you. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to not necessarily agree with what you're telling us. And we need to have those conversations now. It's a benefit for you in the long run. And on the client side, what they really need to do is be open to that. They're the experts in their business. They're always going to be the experts in their business. Where we're bringing expertise to the table is in process design, in efficiency, in sales operations overall, and sales performance management. And we have to help them really differentiate between we've always done it this way and doing it this way is the right decision for the business. And that's really where, if they can make that differentiation, they have a much greater chance of achieving those kinds of transformational changes that we're hoping to get them.
So what's next for Optymyze? Is there anything else that you can share about that road ahead?
Sure. I would say if I think about how we're evolving, there's more and more focus we have on sales enablement, mobile, which obviously mobile is not new. It's been around for a long time. But the adoption of it, what we're looking to do on a mobile basis is really accelerating. We want to get information into salespeople's hands wherever they are, not just comp, which is frankly less important to get in their hands every day, but more information about how their territory is doing, how the customers that they're calling on are doing, where the best opportunities are for them, what the trends in their performance are, and how the work that they do with their customers can translate into better money for them. And the story visualization approach I talked to earlier is key to this. From a broader perspective, really looking at cognitive automation in general, which is a popular buzzword that's out there all over the place, but cognitive automation focused on the salespeople themselves and sales financials. So developing performance profiles based on how different salespeople are doing to help talent improve the success rates of bringing the right people into the right roles from the beginning. Developing predictive analytics and forecasting models that help leadership in companies build off of the most accurate data oftentimes that they have, which is in the sales performance system. The data has to be accurate because you pay on it. You can't afford for it to be inaccurate or incomplete. So developing predictive analytics and models off of that. And then developing more prescriptive analytics that help the salespeople understand which customers that they should be calling on, which products and segments they should be focusing on, how they should do all of that without them having to do a bunch of investigation. And not only showing them that, but showing them why it's good for them to focus on that, because it impacts their pay in a positive way, and it's tied to the incentive plan. Helping to automate sales management, for example, allowing fewer managers to more effectively support more salespeople, coach them more effectively, using some of those cognitive tools that I just talked about. And I would say, in general, continuing to look for ways to leverage those other 4 platforms aside from SPM, because they allow us to add value to other areas of an organization beyond sales and sales ops. We normally start, obviously, in sales and sales ops. That's what we're known for. But as we find out more about an organization in that long-term partnership, we can leverage those platforms in other areas beyond just the sales organization.
So if you've set off a few alarm bells in people's heads listening, can you just advise them where they can find you online, and maybe even contact a member of your team if they've just got any questions or want to carry on that conversation we started today?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, the Optymyze website, www.optymyze.com. It's OPTYMYZE. We like Y's. So certainly you can feel free to check us out there and contact us there. You can check me out on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. Feel free to ping me. It's John Ristuccia. So feel free to reach out to me there. I'm at conferences, industry conferences a lot, like World at Work, Sales Management Association. So if you're at one of those, there's a chance I might be there. There's an even greater chance that someone from Optymyze might be there.
Fantastic. Well, having listened to you talk today, it's so clear that the sales transformation and technology market really is ripe for this new kind of data process. So more than anything, though, just a big thank you for coming on today and taking the time out of your busy day to tell us all about it and share your story. Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
SPM data from Optymyze's solution seems to address a key shortcoming on CRM adoption. Because like he said there, one of the key reasons sales reps don't update their CRM systems every day is that they can't see the impact that this process has on their own personal bottom line. So instead, by layering their CRM with SFA and SPM, so it comprised largely of sales compensation data, this actually gives sales reps insight into how much more money they could actually make if they just act upon their insights derived from their CRM or SFA. Too many acronyms for my liking, but the end result is the motivation is more tangible. But like I said at the beginning of the show, this is not my strong area of expertise, but I suspect if you work in this industry, it is yours, and you're going to have much more stronger opinions on this than myself. So I'd like to hand the microphone over to you guys listening. So remember, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, email me techblogwriter@outlook.com, or go to my website, techblogwriter.co.uk/podcast, leave me a virtual voicemail message. Because when you start saying things like Excel on steroids, my eyes glaze over a little bit, I've got to admit, because it's not my world. But if it's your world, I want to hear your opinions, because that's what makes this show so great. But it's time for me to sign off now, so hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and there's another one coming right back at you tomorrow. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.